Okay, so I think we still have some participants coming in, but I think it's time for us to make a good use of the time we have available for the next couple of hours. Welcome everyone. I would like to give a special welcome to exporters, to leaders, and to a diverse list of participants that are joining us for this important event today. This is an event that we are hosting in partnership with the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development and the European Union. We also were able to organize this event with the very great collaboration that we have established with the Agriculture Export Council and also the Horticultural Export Improvement Association, HEIA. I give a warm...
Josimo, sorry for interruption.
Yes. Yes. Yes, Islam?
You can mention about the availability of interpretation.
Yes, we will get to this, to the housekeeping items.
In just a moment.
Yes. Well, just for some people not to miss some of the information I'm providing, you know, we have two channels you will see on the bottom right part where you can choose English and Arabic. So if you prefer Arabic, you can choose that there. So you can follow the event with more, you know, detail and accuracy. So again, I was just giving a warm welcome to everyone. And actually, before we start with some opening remarks from our main speakers, I would like to pass the floor to Stephanie. She will go through the issue of translation, but also other housekeeping issues. Over to you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Josimo, and thank you to our speakers and to our participants for accepting our invitation and joining us for this webinar. Kindly take note, as Josimo mentioned, of these following housekeeping rules. I'll try to be brief. Please note that we are recording this event, and by attending, you are giving us consent to do so. Please keep your camera and microphone off during the duration of the training, unless you are speaking. If you wish to speak, we invite you to turn on both functions, and please do so. We'd like to see you. We have Arabic interpretation today, as Josimo has already mentioned. So if this is your preference, it is available for your convenience. We invite you to write questions or concerns in the chat box. You may do so either in English or in Arabic, and our colleagues will read them to the speakers during the wrap-up session. This is in your agenda. If you are a participant and would like to take the floor to speak, please use the raise your hand function located in the participants section of your screen, and our moderator, Josimo, will facilitate it. That's all, and welcome again. I hope you have some coffee with you, hopefully real and not virtual. Okay, back to you, Josimo.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. I would like just to start this event. We have a session with some opening remarks, and I will pass the floor to Dr. Nasreddin Hagel-Amin, that is the FAO representative in Egypt. Over to you, Nasreddin.
I would like to welcome you all colleagues for joining us in today's webinar. And thanks to all the participants representing the different entities engaged in this event. I would like to welcome with appreciation the participation as speakers in this opening of Mr. Hisham Al-Najjar, Vice Chairman of the Agriculture Export Council, Madam Iman Kamil, Executive Director of the Horticulture Export Improvement Association, Mr. Tariq Shirbini, Regional Head of Agribusiness for the Southern and Eastern Mediterranean, which EBRD, Madam Francesca Mazuko, Attaché Program Manager, EU Delegation to Egypt. I thank you all, and I thank all my colleagues at the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development and the European Union for hosting jointly with FAO this webinar. And thanks to all of you for spreading the message wide and far together today virtually. The topic of this webinar, as you all know, is of great importance for Egypt, and particularly for its trade, for its overall growth and competitiveness. As we all know, export of high-value agriculture and food products is an important avenue for Egypt to promote its trade. It's important for it to create value addition, and it's important for it to enter into high-quality value products, particularly in markets where the standards of food safety and quality are high. In this webinar, I hope we will be able to share information to discuss market potential for Egyptian exports, in particular in the Eurasia markets, with a focus on the food safety phytosanitary dimension. Now, this event is organized as part of FAO, EBRD, and EU effort to support the private sector to improve compliance with sanitary phytosanitary standards in export-oriented value markets, which goes from quality, as we all know, down to pesticide use, etc. This is an important issue for all of us, and in FAO Egypt, we are fully supportive. We are ready to work with all of you in support of this endeavor in Egypt. And I wish you all fruitful discussion today, and thanks for taking the time and effort to join. And thanks to the organizers from both sides, FAO and BRD, and over to you, Josim.
Thank you very much, Nasreddin. Thank you for these opening remarks. I will now pass the floor to Dr. Hisham Enalgar, that is the Vice Chair for the Agriculture Export Council. He will be representing the chair of the AEC and also the executive director. Over to you, the floor, Dr. Hisham.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, my title is not doctor, I'm just Mr. I'm an economist. I appreciate the title, thank you. Thank you very much, everyone, for this event. It's a very interesting event that we are a part of. We appreciate. I'm sorry I'm not able to open the camera because I'm still suffering from COVID-19 for the past 2 weeks. I'm working from home. So I'll try to make it brief, and everything I'll try to make my statement brief. I think this seminar is very important for everyone. All the stakeholders here are very important to listen and to participate. And I'm asking all my team and my colleagues of exporters in this webinar to please contribute and ask the questions and start to express our concerns and our reasons or motivation as exporters and growers of fresh produce, high value fresh produce all across the country, and our role to improve the quality and the standards and the systems which help our operations and our exports to be having higher value, higher quality, and a better name in our export markets, and also giving opportunities of economic development and sustainability for the Egyptian agriculture sector, which is plays a major role in the economy of Egypt. And I would like to thank all the participants here, the FAO, the URD, and all our colleagues that are available in this setup. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hisham Enalgar from AEC. The collaboration that we have had with AEC in this project has been very fruitful, and we thank you for being with us and supporting us to promote this webinar. I would now give the floor to Madame Iman Kamel, that is the Executive Director of the Horticulture Export Improvement Association, HEIA. We have also had a very nice and fruitful partnership with HEIA, and we are glad that you, Madame, are here with us. The floor is with you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Josimo, And also I would like to thank Dr. Nasruddin and Dr. Islam and all the team that prepared for this successful event. First of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Iman Kamel, Executive Director of the Horticulture Export Improvement Association. It's an NGO. The nickname is HEA. It was established in 1996, so it's 24 years ago. We are specialized in extension service, high-tech extension service for horticultural crops. We are also specialized in providing post-harvest activity, certification activity, some logistics activity like packing houses and cooling storage for the exporters. As you can see from all our services and activities, we are geared toward improving the value chain of the exported horticulture crops. And we are serving all governorates in Egypt from north to south. We have about 49 agronomists, state-of-the-art education, training, with full cooperation and collaboration with Europe and the States and Chile, Peru, South Africa in improving the quality of the extension service. HEA is built based on several crops, several horticulture crops. So we're serving about 9 horticulture crops, from planting up to post-harvest, up to linking the small exporters to the international markets under the umbrella of associations with the exporters. Here, all the international bodies, all donors, all the governmental bodies, as well as the Agriculture Export Council that is chaired by Mr. Abdelhamid Demirdash and his vice, Mr. Hisham Al-Nagar, who is my board member as well, by the way. And I'm wishing him speed recovery and to join me in my speed recovery, because I had Corona as well. And today was my first day, or is my first day. So I hope Hisham will join me soon. So this is in a nutshell. Also, I want to highlight one very important CSR activity that we have sponsored during the past 2 years in HEA. We were committed to provide our extension service and all our activities to small farmers for free all over Egypt. And we had the opportunity to serve them during the whole process of their crops, different crops, starting from plantation up to post-harvest. This is, we feel, the General Assembly, they felt that this is an obligation, a moral obligation towards the unfortunate farmers who cannot afford to get the advanced technology in extension service and post-harvest, to provide them with this service for free and link them and bring them to the value chain of the export of horticulture crops. So this is a nutshell HEA. And during this meeting, Engineer Medhat Al-Meligi, who is the head of the agriculture team, is joining us, as well as Mr. Engineer Muhammad Ali, who is the head of the certification body that provides international certification like Global GAP, BRC, and all the whole variety of international certificate to our members and to the horticulture community. I would like to thank you, everybody. It was a pleasure speaking to you and looking forward. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ms. Iman Kamel. Thank you for introducing the work that HEA is doing for the progress of the agriculture sector in Egypt. I will now pass the floor to Mr. Tarek El Sherbini, that is the Regional Head of Agribusiness for the Southern and Eastern Mediterranean from the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Mr. Tarek, the floor is with you.
Thank you very much, Josimo. Thank you, everyone. Very, very good to be here today. It is our pleasure to welcome you today to this webinar, where experts will discuss how to strengthen food safety standards for fresh fruits and vegetables from Egypt. The webinar is part of a technical assistance project between EBRD and our partners FAO, supported by the EU under the EBRD Trade and Competitiveness Program. Through technical presentations and training by key experts, we aim to increase the capacity of private sector SMEs to access high-value export markets. Egypt has a strong comparative advantage in the fruit and vegetables value chain and is among the world's top exporters for some products. However, Egyptian exports have been hindered by food safety and quality issues. We at the EBRD work with private sector companies to support a strong, sustainable, and inclusive agribusiness sector. Since we started working in Egypt in 2012 to date, we have invested close to $500 million through 19 projects in Egypt's agribusiness sector. We supported SMEs and corporates along the value chain to improve their competitiveness and access to markets. We also work with companies and business associations to provide technical support to investment, improving food safety, fruit and vegetable exports, grain import efficiency, the aquaculture value chain, and resource efficiency are some of the priorities we have supported through technical assistance and advisory activities in Egypt. We would like to thank you very much for joining us today for a constructive discussion on ways to improve the competitiveness of Egyptian fruits and vegetables. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a good conference today.
Thank you, Mr. Tarek. I will now go to the last but not least opening remarks it's coming from the European Union delegation to Egypt. I will open the floor for Madame Francesca Mazzucco, that is the attaché and program manager that's part of the economic governance and SME finance of the EU delegation to Egypt. The floor is with you.
So thank you very much. I would like to thank, first of all, the EBRD and the FAO for the organization of this very important webinar, and of course, welcome all the participants. I see that there is a broad range of entities participating. So let me say that the EU considers Egypt as an important trade partner, and this of course applies also to the export of agri-food products from Egypt to the EU. Egypt is one of the top exporters of fruit and vegetables to the EU, and I'm very happy that this value chain has been selected during this webinar as an area to further support and analyze under the program Trade and Competitiveness. The program is implemented by the EBRD, and the EU is contributing with 20 million euro. Until now, the results have been very, very remarkable. So I would like to say just a few words about the project that indeed was designed especially in the context of enhancing trade relations between Egypt and the EU through a combination of technical assistance, but also access to finance to support export-oriented businesses and SMEs. So an important feature of the project is indeed to bring trade-related requirements such as industrial and food safety standards closer to the EU legislation and the EU standards. So when we talk about food safety for agricultural products, it is very important key an issue not only for the protection and guarantee the consumers' health, but also this is an opportunity for boosting trade. Actually, I would like to say from the EU side that the tariffs on agricultural products were already abolished in 2010 when we signed the agreement on agriculture. However, we can do more to cooperate on sanitary and phytosanitary standards to increase our bilateral trade. We have already performed a series of seminars and activities with the government. I remember that 2 years ago in Cairo, there was a workshop and Egypt was invited to join a new system which is called Traces to allow Egypt to send electronically SPS certificates when exporting to a member state of the EU. So in 2018, also the EU acknowledged the efforts made by Egypt in relation to pesticides in fruits and vegetables, and we have lifted some of the extra checks for strawberries. However, still there are high level of non-compliance for certain products for which additional checks are required. So having said that, I would like to say that also that the EU is very open to strengthen the cooperation with Egypt, especially in view of the new strategy, which is called the Farm to Fork. Actually, it has become urgent to better promote sustainable agriculture, to improve consumers' health, and some of the important farms in Egypt have already taken this way. For example, with the implementation of pest management approach. Just to conclude, I would like to really appreciate your efforts, EBRD and our efforts to engage with the private sector, including also the small and business side enterprises, the Egyptian authorities and the banking system to advance together on this important aspect of food safety and agricultural products. And I'm confident that this sector has really an enormous market potential, not only to the EU, but also globally. So only a joint effort and mutual support can increase food safety, food quality, and promote better competitiveness and entrepreneurship in Egypt. So as we're talking about fruits, I would like to wish a fruitful discussion today.
Thank you very much, Madam Francesca. I think we have started this webinar very well, not only because of the content of the speech of the speakers, but also because we have kept time very well. We are within the time that we have allocated for the opening remarks. So thanks for everyone to contribute for that. We will now move to 3 different presentations. We will have one presentation that is more on looking at the market overview of opportunities for expansion of the export horticulture sector in Egypt. And then we will move. So in this first presentation, you will see a lot of focus on looking at main markets. And of course, EU is a major market for importing products, horticulture products from Egypt. And also we will have a presentation. The second presentation will be looking at other alternative markets, and we will be talking about the Euro-Asian markets. And we'll have a third presentation that is more to look at the types of support that EBRD is providing to SMEs in Egypt. So basically, we'll go from overview of markets opportunity to specific things that the project and EBRD is doing to upgrade, horticulture exports in Egypt. I'm being the moderator for this webinar, but I would like to, with your permit, to step down from my moderator's role to actually present now the first study. So we had a number of colleagues participating with us in conducting these studies, but I will take the role to just give a very brief screenshot of what is ahead of us as we try to improve horticulture export from Egypt. So I will share my screen now and I will start my presentation with your permit. Just one moment. I assume that at this point you already seen my presentation. So basically in this short presentation, I would like to highlight some of the, the growth trends that we have for different agriculture products that are exported from Egypt. I will talk about some of growth potential, being specific to different kind of products, but also which markets have show the greatest potential for Egypt exports. We will come down to discuss about the main food safety and even phytosanitary issues that are affecting horticulture export from Egypt. And I will finalize with the summary of this study by highlighting what are the main value chains or products that we are focusing on as we move along with this project. So basically, if we look at the export in the last 10 years, you will see that we have an uptrend. There is a trend to a growth export from Egypt. But if you look the difference between fruits, nuts, peel, and citrus fruit, and melons, you will see that it has, for the last 5 years or so, there is a trend to intensify, to increase the growth, where you can see a contrast that for vegetable and some roots and tuber, there is a small trend. But if you see in general, we are seeing a quite significant trend to expand horticulture exports, starting in 2009 with about 1.8 billion. And in 2018, you're talking about close to $2.4 billion in exports. If we look at the different, the most important products, just analyzing the last 5 years, you will see the usual suspects there. Oranges, grapes, the bulk products like potatoes and onions taking the lead, and with very significant level of export. You will see, for example, oranges that Egypt is exporting in the last 5 years. The average of the last 5 years is more than half $1 billion in exports. But if we look at so here we are looking at the 12 most important products when it comes to values of exports. And if you look at the compound annual growth rate for those projects, you will see some very major difference there. You see oranges, you see pomegranates, herbs and spices, and strawberries, and even mangoes with a quite sizable annual growth rate. While you can see some that stay more or less the same and have some negative growth. So you can see that oranges, for example, while it is by far the top export from Egypt, it's still growing at a very fast rate. That is something very important. Those 12 products that was the focus of our analysis, it represents in terms of value about 73% of the total value of horticulture exports from Egypt. This is the average in the last 5 years. And in terms of volume, it even represents more, and I would assume it's because the potatoes, the onions, and the oranges is about 81%. And if we look at those 12 products, they actually have outpaced in terms of growth the total portfolio of horticulture products. So those 12 products have grown at a rate of 4% in the last 5 years, while the total agriculture exports have grown just about a 2%. So this is just to say that there is a potential for those exports to keep growing, especially for those 12 products that we are looking at. If we look at the different markets that those products are going to, you can see that European Union is a very important market for Egypt exports. It takes about 32%, and also the MENA region, especially in the GCC countries, that they take about 37%. But also the former Soviet Union countries are also very important. It takes about 18%. And we see the Asian and South Pacific with also a sizable share. It trails those regions, the Americas, especially US and Canada, and Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa. So basically, if we look at those markets that are already sizable, like MENA, the former Soviet Union and European markets, you can see that not only they are sizable, but in the case of Europe, they are still growing very fast. So they are becoming still a much better opportunity for agriculture export coming from Egypt. If you look at I'm just trying to reduce this here. So if you look at the different countries, I'm being specific for countries, you will see that Saudi Arabia and Russian Federation, they are very important markets. KSA takes about 16% of the annual exports from 2015 to 19. While the Russian Federation took about 15%. An important country there is, of course, all the European Union countries. You see Netherlands, United Kingdom, Germany, and Italy that are already very important markets, and they are growing markets for Egypt exports. But also you can see China, that have grown from 2015 about tenfold. It came from about $10 million in exports to represent over $100 million in 2019. So you have the usual markets, the Russian Federation, the GCC countries, and of course the European Union, but also you see some emerging markets like China, that are important markets at this point for several products coming from Egypt. One thing to consider is that it is true that the trends in terms of the products that are growing, but also in terms of countries and regions that are receiving our products, are quite clear. But one thing that is very important is to look at the difference in terms of value, how higher value some markets are in comparison to others. If you see the last row in this table, you will see a quite large difference in terms of the average amount that Egypt is getting for exports from when it's going to one country or to the other. You can see a range that it's about $1,400 in Germany to about, let's say, $800 that of the average cost or price of the ton that goes to Iraq. Of course, those large difference is due to differences in the types of products that are being exported. So if you export more strawberries or aromatic plants, the price of those metric tons are much higher than for oranges, for example. But actually, if you look at the individual products, you will see that, for example, for grapes, you can get as low as $1,000 per ton in Iraq and as high as $2,200 in the UK. So for the same product, it matters a lot where you exporting your products to. And of course, the European countries, they tend to represent a much higher value to exporters. But also, we all know that those are markets that are much more difficult to access and to remain connected with those markets because of the market standards that are imposed. So this is something to consider, that the mix of products that the horticulture sector is exporting, it matters a lot for the types of values, the value that we are bringing back to the investment that we have made, but also it matters the type of markets that we are exporting to. So this is an information that is important for decision making. If we look ahead in the next 3 to 4 years, you will see also very clear the types of markets that still have a big space to grow. For example, Saudi Arabia and the European countries, they are already very sizable markets for Egyptian exports, but there is still a quite sizable space for those exports to grow. Actually, in Saudi Arabia, the level of exports can almost double, you know, and then that would represent at the current levels about 30% of all the products that are exported. But also if you see the United Arab Emirates, another very important, it will almost triple, there is a space to close to triple the levels of exports. And also you will see Europe, United Kingdom, Germany, Italy, and some other European countries that are not yet very important markets like Spain and France, but they still have a very large space to grow. One thing that I mentioned there is that China actually does not stand out, although in the last 5 years they have grown tenfold, but this is not, as we look forward, it doesn't seem to, at least based on the data from the ITC, that it doesn't seem that there is a very large space to grow compared to the other markets. So this is all to say that Egypt has been growing in the last 10 years. The last 5 years has been very important for some key products like aromatic plants, oranges, strawberries. And on the way ahead for the next 3 to 4 years, there is a very large space to grow in several countries that are importing already from Egypt. So that is good news for us. And I will not build much. We have a whole, in this study that you will receive at some point, we have a whole analysis of business activities in each one of the types of products that we have. So basically, looking at the use of value, how cost effective is the investment that we are making in, for example, expanding exports of oranges, grapes, and all the 12 products that you see there. But also, what is the types of companies of private sector entities that are actually participating in those products. So you can see here the bulk products, for example, like potatoes, that if you see the first tier that you see there in the third and fourth column, left to right, you will see that about 65% of the value of exports that are done, this is done just by 8 different exporters. So you have very large exporters, and you have exports with very large amounts that are exported several years. But if you look, for example, for other products like onions, that is still a bulk product, you have about 109 producers or exporters that are exporting the first 65% of the value of export from this product. So you see a variety. You see products that you have a concentration, much larger companies exporting there, where you see all the products that are, you know, taking much smaller size of export. It's still substantial, but it is divided in a much greater number of export. So there is, I will not build on that because we do not have the time, but this is just to give a screenshot of the types of analysis that we are making to better understand the different value chains and the opportunities that are out there. So I want to move now to the last part, that is, so we have seen the products that are important, we have seen the markets that are important, and we have seen the types of potential that is there for us to grow. But as already mentioned in some speakers in the beginning, food safety is something that is of much importance for us, and we really need to address. I think Egypt have done a good job in addressing some food safety issues, but there are even when there are small issues, not isolated issues, it can have a big harm in terms of the reputation of Egypt as a major exporter of horticulture products. So we really need to do our best to minimize to the lowest possible the level of rejections or notification that are generated in the different markets. So here, it's just a summary. If you look in the EU, for example, for different types of products, you will see that, for example, for olives, or let me go to oranges, we have had from 2014 to 2019 about 10 notifications of products that were exported, and at the border of entrance, they were either rejected and they were punished in some ways. So they could not enter the market as originally planned. So you see that there is some notification. I wouldn't say that is a very high level of notification, but there is quite a sizable number of, for example, for pepper, 26 different notifications just in the EU. And also, if you look at the GCC countries, you also see quite a big size of different types of notification at the border of entrance, which indicates, you know, what are the products that have the highest level of notifications, and more or less, you know, how frequent those notifications has been. One thing to consider is that for the GCC country, we're just talking about from 2017 to 19, while for the EU rejection, it is from 2014 to 2019. So in the case of the Russian Federation, most of the notification is about the sanitary and phytosanitary issues. So there is no much about a maximum residual levels that we have observed. So basically, if we look at this, I'm trying to, okay. If we look at just as a summary, you will see when you combine looking at what are the products that have the largest potential and what is the products that you have the largest number of notification, you will see in the from green to red, you will see the colors, you will see the products that have the largest problems. You will see pomegranates, tomatoes, guavas being a major, and oranges a major issue in the GCC countries, while you see peppers and strawberries leading the way in EU situation. And you see for mostly it is oranges and potatoes that have faced some SPS problems in the Russian Federation markets. And on the right part, you will see that we just looked at, of course, some products have much higher level of higher volumes of export, and of course they will tend to have a larger number of notification. But here you will see the number of notification by, you know, per 1,000 metric tons that are exported. And if you look, more or less the situation are the same. You will see that peppers is a serious issue. You will see that the strawberries is an issue. You will see that oranges is an issue. So basically, based on with all this information, based on the levels of notification of MRL and SPS issues, based on the potential growth for the different value chain, based on the return per metric tons and per hectare, basically the capacity for those crops to make the better, generate more return from the water and limited land that we use, and also the presence and SMEs participating in those different value chains. We kind of summarized and we picked 5 different value chains that we want to focus. We have a whole program as part of this project to create different guidelines, food safety and SPS guidelines, and also to conduct a number of trainings. And those will happen to focus specifically in oranges, grapes, medicinal and aromatic plants, strawberries, and tomatoes. Now, we all know that producers of those products, they are also producing a variety of other products. So we know that the impact that the trainings for those 5 value chains will have will go beyond the mere production of those value of those products there. So we want to see this having an impact that goes beyond. I think I have gone above the time that I should have used for that. I will stop here, but I want to just to warn the participants that please put in the chat, use the chat box for you to address your questions to us. When we go to the Q&A session, we will be using the questions that have been placed in the chat to address those questions to the speakers of this webinar. So please put clearly stated your questions, and we will address as many of them as possible, okay? Thank you very much for being patient with me during this presentation. I will now give the floor to Ksenia Gorovaya. She has been working with FAO in this study, and she will be presenting on the market opportunities for Egyptian exports in the Euro-Asian markets. So without further ado, the floor is yours, Ksenia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Josimo, for a cheerful presentation. I'm glad to see this honorable audience. Glad to hope you're all in good shape or maybe recovering from the COVID. Yeah, take care in this crazy time. Right now, it's 22,000 cases in Russia every day, so it's not looking very well. So I'm going to present today about the opportunities for Egyptian produce on the Eurasian Economic Union market. We're going to talk about what the union is about, the potential of the Egyptian products on the market, and the recent trends that affect the produce market in Russia and in the Union. First of all, briefly about myself. I have been in produce business for over 15 years, which is unbelievable. I have been doing market studies for US Department of Agriculture as well as an FAO, and I have worked as the marketing representative for international trade associations doing their marketing programs on the market of Russia. So first of all, on the Eurasian Economic Union, what is it? This body of countries was started, the negotiations over the creation of the union started in 2010. The union as it is right now was created in 2015, and right now it includes 5 countries. That is, of course, Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, and the recent members are Armenia and Tajikistan. The reason for the creation of this union was to increase the geopolitical role of the member countries and facilitate trade between these countries. And here I want to draw your attention that there are 2 Central Asian republics, Tajikistan and Kazakhstan, in the union, which create direct competition to Egypt in terms of vegetable and fruit production, including grapes, including vegetables. So that's a point. Egypt has been in good relations with the union since its beginning, and in 2018, Egypt signed the FTA, the Free Trade Agreement, with the union. Well, they signed the framework for this free trade agreement. The free trade agreement is still going, but the first steps were made. And so far, the communication with the union has been productive between Egypt and the union. Why should Egyptian exporters consider the Eurasian Economic Union as for export? First of all, it's a big market. The joint population of the union is 182 million people, which is half less than the European Union, but still the Eurasian Union is one of the largest bodies in the Eurasia.
Ksenia, may I interrupt you for just a moment? Can you kindly share the screens? Are you switching the slides?
Yes. Interesting. You do not see my screen?
We see just the first slide of your screen, but
Ay,
not the
ay, ay.
next slides.
Yeah, I have had some.
I may try it from my end in case.
Do you
Oh,
Now it's
perfect.
okay.
Perfect. Thank you
And-
very much.
Okay.
If you could just quickly.
And now do you see me turning the slides?
Yes.
Okay, great. It sometimes happens. I don't know the reason for this bug.
If you
Yeah.
want. Yes. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, yeah,
Continue.
thank you for the comment. In spite of the falling prices on natural resources, Russia preserves the decent per capita incomes in the region, so that presents potential for growth in fruit and vegetable consumption. And due to climatic conditions, Russia cannot grow as many vegetables as they eat, and specifically that is true for the fruits. So Russia remains import dependent. And what is attractive to most of the global exporters is that traditional wholesale markets in Russia are still quite strong, opposite to European countries where global gap and sustainability and other regulational bodies are strong. In Russia, those traditional markets are still taking quite a big share, which offers the opportunity to different quality levels of produce that is shipped to the market. Okay. About the Eurasian Economic Union. So the executive body of the Eurasian Economic Union is the Eurasian Economic Commission. And here I am quoting the website of the commission, and that is the source of information for the supranational legislation, where you can download the phytosanitary and sanitary regulations, acts, and decisions. The Eurasian Economic Union has the joint customs code, customs tariff that is shared between all 5 member states. So upon the accession into the Union, all 5 countries worked on the unification of their legislation with the Union's legislation. Yeah, so here I am outlining the main documents and the source of information where you can get acquainted with the documents. Some of them are translated into English language. As to the SPSS regulation, the supranational legal framework includes many decisions, but the main decisions that I'm drawing your attention to is the decision 299 and decision 149. Why are they important? First of all, the decision 299 regulates the sanitary and epidemiologic hygienic requirements, while the decision 149 is dedicated to requirements for pesticides and agrochemicals imported and produced on the territory of the customs union. So this decision sets requirements for pesticides and agrochemicals and regulates the maximum residue levels. So that is the document to reference. What is also important when exporting to the Eurasian Economic Union is labeling. There are plenty of cases of rejections of exported products, including Egyptian products, when the commercial packaging, meaning boxes, or individual packaging, meaning individual packs, did not contain the proper labels. Here on the slide, you see the the list of information that should be on the label. And what is important, the label should be in the Russian language. So the exporter needs to take, my importers have been asking, the importers that I have been communicating with, asked me to pass this information to you. So whoever exports to the market of Russia should be very careful with the labels and should double check several times with your counterpart importer on the way you prepared this label. Especially this is important when you ship to the retailer. If any of the packaging doesn't contain this label, the whole shipment is automatically declined. When we talk about the Eurasian Economic Union, we mainly still talk about Russia. As Josimo outlined in his presentation, Russia remains the key market for Egyptian exporters globally and in the Eurasian Economic Union in particular. So Russia accounts for over 95% of produce exports from Egypt to the Union. So my presentation will be mainly focusing on the Russian market. So I wanted to make this comment in the beginning. As to other members of the Union, you see that Egyptian oranges are also exported to Belarus, Kazakhstan, and Armenia, while olives, processed olives, are also exported to Belarus. As to other vegetables, members of the Eurasian Union are not importing actively from Egypt vegetables, sorry. Yeah, as I said before, in general, the communication between Egypt and Russia have been and trade relations have been on the positive mode. However, in September 2016, there were temporary restrictions on Egyptian exports to Russia that included citrus fruit, tomatoes, potatoes, among others. The issue was quite fastly resolved. There were Russian inspectors coming to the Egyptian plants, and there were some negotiations that resulted in fast resolution of the issue. However, several zones, Egyptian zones that harvest potatoes and that are considered to be infected with a bacterial wilt are still not open to Russia. As Josim also mentioned, there have been rejections by the Russian Veterinary and Phytosanitary Service, and the total within the past 5 years was 28 rejections, mainly due to the bacterial wilt in potatoes or Mediterranean fly in oranges. However, at the same time, Russia has quite a strong story of embargoes against trade partners, specifically over the past 5 years. Egypt did benefit from those embargoes because that reduced competition and increased interest in Egyptian products. The main embargo that we all know from the news is the embargo on the EU and US produce that has been effective since August 2014 and it actually includes a very broad list of food items, but it includes vegetables and fruits, the categories that matter to us, to today's discussion. So since 2014, the European Union members and the United States cannot supply fruits and vegetables to the Russian Federation, full stop. What that means, it means that there are some significant volumes of products out of the market, like tomatoes from the Netherlands that were worth $270 million prior to the ban, capsicums from Netherlands, strawberries, carrots, etc., etc. So this embargo opened windows to alternative suppliers on the Russian market. The second embargo that was more or less released, like the embargo is finished up to date, was the Turkish crisis when around Syria. You may remember that Turkey downed the Russian military airplane on the border with Turkey and Syria. That resulted on a major embargo that mainly concerned Turkish tomatoes on the Russian market. About over 300,000 tomatoes from Turkey were banned to the Russian market in 2015, which caused a major crisis in the Turkish produce sector. and Russian market has seen increase in tomato prices clearly. As of today, the volume of tomatoes is back. However, there are still quotas on import from Turkey, which is around 200,000 tons. And here I want to draw your attention to the fact that there have been not so many cases on the border with Egyptian produce, and more or less trade has been on a positive mode. But whenever Russia is developing their self-sufficiency, problems may arise, and you should be careful with quality requirements and the standards. As you see, Turkish tomatoes were seriously affected on the Russian market. And one of the reasons for that, we can speculate, this is not confirmed, but that's the feeling that we have, is that the tomatoes were so badly affected because Russia has taken strong efforts to develop own tomato production. The investment in the greenhouse sector have exceeded billions of dollars, and the space under modern greenhouses exceeds 1,000 hectares, which is a lot. So the conclusion from that, as long as Russia develops its self-sufficiency in vegetable production, quality requirements may rise for international suppliers. So what did Egyptian exporters supply to Russia, and how have imports looked over the past seasons? Speaking about vegetables, the vegetable supply has been down. And that is explained, as I explained before, that is explained with a major investment of the Russian Federation in own vegetable production. That concerns root vegetables, because climate allows us to grow potatoes, onions, carrots, etc., and the greenhouse development in Russia. So potatoes, potato exports from Egypt to Russia were down, and the categories that were up mainly not grown in Russia because of the climate, like capsicum or eggplant. Now more on each product, each target product. So Russia has reduced potato imports in general. So most of the international suppliers to the Russian market have lost their market shares in potatoes, because Russia increased own production by roughly 40% within the past 10 years in volume. Russia also invested in storing facilities, which reduces the opportunity window for Egyptian suppliers to spring months and early summer months. As you see on the chart, on the right chart, several months that that offer market potential for potatoes. Other months are dominated by the domestic supply. Still, Egyptian positions on the Russian potato market are strong. Depending on the year, Egypt takes up to 50% of the import potato volume in Russia. Other active suppliers are Azerbaijan, China. China is mainly to the eastern part of the country, meaning the Russian Far East, and Pakistan. Pakistan offers really affordable potatoes to the market. The Egyptian strength on the market is competitive prices, and that your production window matches with a period when domestic crop is not as strongly represented, and established supply corridors, meaning that the supply via Novorossiysk port has been operating, and this channel is established. Among the weaknesses that I want to mention is that the Russian exchange rate has depreciated first in 2014 and now in 2020 because of the collapse on the oil market. So so we become more price sensitive, and we can offer smaller margins to the global exporters just because we have lost our disposable income. The next commodity that we wanted to discuss was tomatoes. Tomatoes, as said, also domestic tomatoes also increase their market share, and that was reflected in the import volumes. You see that the average import volume of tomatoes to the Russian Federation was around 700,000 tons per annum from all destinations, and now it's below 600,000 metric tons per annum from all destinations. So this is challenging. What market demands is the specialty tomatoes from import destinations. So round tomato sector is mainly taken by Morocco, and it's very hard to move their positions, while cherry tomatoes are still in demand, and the opportunity window is, as with potatoes, in the spring months. Egypt takes less than 1% of tomato exports to Russia, and predominantly it supplies between November to June. Yeah, so the strengths and weaknesses are similar to the potato ones. Sorry, I'm facing some troubles with them. As to fruit, Egyptian fruit exports to Russia, here the picture is brighter, and that's because of the climatic situation, climatic conditions. Russians cannot grow their the full assortment of fresh fruits. So oranges have been on the rise. The citrus category in general has grown in Russia over years. Citrus are favored by Russian consumers, especially in cold winters. Vitamin C is demanded by the consumer. And also, citrus and bananas are considered most affordable produce items on the market. So oranges have actually taken share from other fruit categories, like stone fruit, grapes have lost their market share, while oranges in general on the Russian market have become stronger, and they are demanded. That is reflected in the table. Yeah, now more on each product. Russia remains the leading global importer of oranges. It's number 4 by volume. It was number 4 by volume in 2019. At the same time, the average import unit value per metric ton was lower than the average paid by European Union member countries. So there are less margins on the Russian market than in the European Union. Egypt is by far the leading exporter of oranges to the Russian market, and that is because Egypt offers competitive pricing. And also we should remember that Spain is out of the market. Spain has been out of the market due to that Russian food embargo that I mentioned earlier. So they have given their share to alternative suppliers. Egypt supplies, orange supplies dominate the market with 50% share on average. Yeah. Next to grapes, sorry, yeah, because I cannot. Sorry. Okay, grapes. As said earlier, grape category in general is not living through bright times right now in Russia. The volumes have decreased in 2015, when the exchange rate was unfavorable to ruble. And so basically the grape category became expensive. And most of the grapes volumes are consumed in summer, when those Central Asian republics and Moldova supply affordable grapes to the market. So supply during the alternative periods like the spring period is quite low of grapes. As you see, the volume of grapes incoming in June is twice or 3 times lower than in August, when Turkey and Central Asian republics start to supply affordable grapes to the Russian market. Yeah, and again, the average import unit price in Russia for grapes is almost twice or 3 times lower than of US exporters, than of US importers and the European Union importers. And competition on the grape market is quite high. Yeah. As to strawberries, Egypt has been dominating the Russian strawberry market during the months of December and January. That is the bright side, and plus, as we have seen in Josimo's table, Russia paid the highest price for Egyptian strawberries out of all importers. At the same time, the volumes of strawberry consumption in January, December are quite low. So it's a seasonal, citrus is taking most of the fruit market during that period. Prior to sanctions, the European Union was among strongest suppliers of strawberries to the Russian market, including strawberries from Greece, Poland, and Spain, while Turkey now is the leading supplier of strawberries to Russia with 43% in 2019. Yeah, so there is a potential for Egyptian strawberries on the Russian market, but it is limited to the winter months, and it is not promising significant volumes just due to the overall landscape on the fruit market. What is in demand? The number one growth category on the Russian fruit market has been mangoes and guavas. I was actually surprised with that when I looked at the import statistics, and then I started to read the analytics, and actually the growth, the average growth between 2015 and 2019 was 40%. That is due to the healthy eating trends in the society, the diversification of culinary interests like Asian restaurants, Asian drinks that drive this guava and mango sales up. But that has been a promising category, and Egypt is playing quite a significant role in this segment, being the fourth by volume guava and mango exporter to Russia. And importers appreciate the quality and price of Egyptian guavas and mangoes, appreciating the color and the taste of this product. So that has been a success story of the past 5 years. Another thing that I want to mention with this slide is that Israel, even though it has been in good relations with Russia and there haven't been trade disputes with Israel, Israel has been losing share on the Russian market due to price. And whatever you have from the Egyptian or from Israeli assortment that you can offer at a more affordable price, that would be demanded on the market. Carrots in the counter season to the Russian carrot production, meaning spring and early summer, capsicums, eggplants, cabbages, and dates, all of this is demanded on the Russian market if the quality is comparable to the Israeli, and if you offer a more competitive price. Now to the trends that affect we are almost there, we are almost finishing. Now to the trends that affect the produce market and that are relevant to you. Several times I have mentioned the exchange rate. This chart shows you that in 2013, the exchange rate was about 30 rubles per US dollar. Due to the situation in Ukraine and overall stagnation on the oil markets, the exchange rate climbed to 60 rubles per US dollar. And this recent crisis, COVID crisis, and plus again, fluctuations on the oil market caused it to go up to almost 80 rubles per US dollar. That's a big shock for the market, as you can imagine. So this does affect trade more than anything else, the exchange rate. We cannot skip the topic of the COVID, but we will talk about it in the light of fruit consumption. So there has been a boom in produce consumption because of the unclear medical protocols. People didn't know what to do, what to eat, what pills to take to save themselves from the COVID. So they increased their produce shopping. So as you may have heard, Turkey even banned the export of lemons, calling it a strategic product in spring, because they wanted to keep all the lemon for themselves and eat all the lemon and support their people from the COVID by the vitamin C that they would consume. So in general, the fruit sales have been up. The second point that I wanted to cover in the light of the COVID was that e-commerce has grown as everywhere in the world, and that strengthened the positions of modern retailers on the market. We'll talk about modern retailers in the last part of this presentation. Yeah. So that's how COVID impacted the produce market. And then domestic production that we have discussed, but I wanted to dedicate a slide to that. So Russia allocated $25 billion to finance import substitution programs, meaning modern technologies, storing facilities, distribution centers, etc., etc. There were 40 new distribution centers opened in Russia within the 5 recent years. What is also interesting is that retailers are involved in the produce production themselves, which reduces which increases their interest in self-sufficiency, of course. So, for example, a retailer Thunder is 80% self-sufficient in cucumbers and 10% self-sufficient in tomatoes, and they want to grow this tomato part by 30% within the next years. And the 2 last slides of this presentation is the modern retail expansion. The concentration of modern retail in Russia remains moderate if compared to Western world. Leading 7 retailers still take 40% of the 40% of sales of overall sales in Russia. However, this chart shows you how ambitious their development plans are. So this chart on the slide shows you the number of outlets each leading retailer operates. So from 4,000 stores in 2013 for X5 Group to 16,000 for the same group in 2019. So this is a superpower that will drive the produce market in the near future. And of course, the landscape of importers is changing in Russia in favor of direct import of retailers, and that changes the import procedures for exporters. Yeah. So Russian retail requirements. This presentation, the background to this presentation is the report that I prepared for Josimo's team. And as I know, it was distributed to the audience of today's seminar. So you can look up for these retail requirements in your mailbox. I have provided retail requirements for the leading retailers like Magnet, X5 Group, Lenta, Azbuka Vkusa, and that's in the report that I was referring to. What do we need to know in brief about the retail requirements in Russia? Mostly that concerns the appearance of the fruits. So you can see how they judge on oranges, on the appearance of the skin, on the sizing, on the on the sustainable quality, on the packaging. Labeling that we have mentioned early in this presentation is vital for retailers. Basically, if you do not label your packaging when you export to the retailer, your whole container will be rejected and there is nothing that you can do about it. Yeah, so most of the retail requirements cover such matters as the external quality and the packaging. Yeah, so that was from me today. I hope I was within the 40 minutes that I was allocated. I'll be glad to answer your questions.
Thank you very much, Xenia. It is a very good and detailed presentation. The report also that you have referred to, I have read that in detail, and it's a very informative document that, as I will indicate at the end, will be shared with all the participants. So now I will move to our last presentation. That it will be presented by Mr. Magdi Amin, Associate Banker, SME Finance and Development from the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Mr. Magdi, the floor is with you.
Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me clearly right now? Is my voice
Very well,
clear?
thank you.
Okay, perfect. I'm just going to share my screen right now. Give me a second. Share screen. Okay. Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be quite brief. I'll just take 10 minutes of your time to give everyone an overview of how the EBRD supports SMEs in the agribusiness sector. I'll start off by giving a brief overview of the EBRD's agribusiness activities. Just a quick snapshot. Across all EBRD countries of operation to date, the agribusiness team has invested 12.2 billion euros through 729 projects since the bank's establishment in 1991. We currently have an active portfolio of 220 projects, which amount to 2.9 billion euros. And on average, the EBRD invests 740 million euros in the past 3 years through 161 projects. Just something to point out, we are referring to the EBRD's aggregate agribusiness portfolio, meaning that represents numbers across the EBRD's 38 countries of operation, as well as the EBRD's investments in both corporates and SMEs. How does our agribusiness segment support? We do that through improving resource efficiency, through introducing new products and technologies, improving safety and quality standards, increasing competitiveness, and of course, accessing markets. We have partnerships, as this event today is quite representative, with fine institutions such as FAO and the EU. We invest along the entire agribusiness value chain, i.e. we invest in agri-inputs and farming, primary processing, food and beverage production, packaging, as well as food retail. Just a quick glance at our activities in Egypt. In 2019, the EBRD invested 1.2 billion euros in Egypt across all sectors, including sustainable infrastructure, agribusiness, industry and commerce, as well as financial institutions. Just an interesting note, Egypt is EBRD's largest country of operation. With regards to the support for SMEs, we do that through multiple platforms. The first is know-how by technical assistance and business advice. This is done via our advice for small business unit, where we provide local and international consultants to companies in order to help them on the right track in terms of advisory and consultancy, as well as access to capital, which is done in 2 ways: direct financing, which is the team that I sit on, which is effectively we provide direct financing to SMEs via the EBRD. The other is indirect financing, which is done through our financial institutions arm, where we provide credit lines to a large scale private and public sector banks. Our clients in that side include National Bank of Egypt, Bank of Misr, CIB. Effectively to date, in Corona times, our FI arm has invested around $850 million to date. Also, given that we are an international financial institution, we do some policy dialogue with ministries and major industry leaders in Egypt. Let me talk to you a bit about our financing for SMEs. Can everyone still hear me clearly? Am I clear?
Very clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Basically, just in order not to cause any mix-up or frustration, when we refer to SMEs in this context, we refer to the European Union definition of SMEs, which is effectively up to 50 million euros in revenue and up to 250 employees. This also includes up to 43 million euros in assets. Our definition is quite different from the Central Bank of Egypt's definition. And please, in any time when speaking about the EBRD SME business, we would be referring to our EU definition. The type of lending that we do for SMEs is mainly debt. We do senior secured and unsecured loans, as well as subordinated notes and mezzanine financing. Our typical investment size or ticket size is 1 to 10 million euros. We sometimes do short-term loans, but this is not typical for SMEs. Our preferred tenor is 5 to 7 years, which is long-term loans. We do floating and fixed interest rates, and we provide our loans in local and foreign currency, including the USD, euros, and British pounds. Just a note here that foreign currency financing might not be very prevalent for SMEs from other institutions, local institutions. That's a great strength that the EBRD provides its direct financing clients. Our products are flexible and tailored to the needs of our clients. Moving on to our investment grant for SMEs. Under the EU-funded Trade and Competitiveness Program, the EBRD supports the competitiveness and growth of SMEs in Egypt. SMEs receiving EBRD financing can access investment grants of up to 15% of CapEx investment to purchase new machinery equipment if they meet the eligibility criteria. The first two, revenues and employees, is exactly the same as our general EU criteria. With regards to ownership and registration, they have to be private sector companies registered and operating in Egypt. The industries that this grant supports is agribusiness, manufacturing and services, logistics and distribution, as well as information and communication technologies. Value chain, the companies need to be part of a value chain where they act either as a supplier or buyer of products or services. And the type of investment has to be CapEx investment grants that can support the CapEx investment component. A quick case study was Roda. Roda is an Egyptian SME that produces and sells fresh fruits and vegetables for export and local markets. The EBRD has provided a British pound 1.8 million loan to support the purchase of new patented grape varieties and irrigation systems in order to extend the pack house. The project has enabled the company to expand their production, increase energy efficiency, boost exports and revenue. Under the EU-funded Trade and Competitiveness Program, the company received an investment grant of up to 15% of the EBRD financing for the CapEx investment. That amounts to roughly 270,000 euros. Regarding green investments, the support for green investments, we have technical assistance. We support the companies to identify and implement resource efficiency investments and sustainable practices. For example, resource efficiency audits, feasibility studies, and sustainability certifications, etc. The EBRD can cover up to 80% of the cost in the context of an EBRD investment. That's an important point, that these grants come in conjunction with loans or other investment products from the EBRD. Also, we have investment grants. We have our Finance and Technology Transfer Center for Climate Change, FinTech, which offers cashback guarantees to support companies to implement advanced climate technologies. It's up to 25% of the cost of eligible technologies, and this has a cap of up to 400,000 euros, again, along with an EBRD investment. Examples for that in the agribusiness context would include drip irrigation systems, hydroponic agriculture, off-grid, small-scale renewable energy systems, PV, biomass, etc., sustainable production lines, efficient cold storage, waste and water recycling technologies, etc. We also have our Advice for Small Business program, which I touched upon earlier. The main focus is providing business advice in a wide range of areas in all governorates. Projects are tailored to the needs of each client. Advisory projects are offered through local or international advisors. Over 800 SMEs in Egypt supported. About 20% of those are in the agribusiness sector. Areas of support include strategy, marketing, operations, resource efficiency, ICT, quality and environmental management, accounting, and financial reporting. The enterprise eligibility for advisors is a bit different than financing. So it's autonomous private companies, locally owned, with 51% Egyptian ownership. That's an added caveat. Again, the number of employees must be less than 250 and turnover less than 50 million euros. Again, that's the strict guidelines from the EU. For international advisors, the project value can go up to 50,000 euros and the client contribution on average is 50%. Thank you all very much. And I hope I was short and sweet. And if you have any questions, I'm waiting for you in the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Magdi, for a very efficient and clear presentation. Very useful for this webinar, your presentation. Well, we have finished the different presentations that were planned, and we are okay with time, and we are very good in managing our time. So now I would like to open actually for a Q&A. I already have Dr. Hisham from Daltex, the CEO from Daltex, that would like to speak. I will give him the floor, and after that, I will give to Dimitri Pritko, that is one of our colleagues and that is leading this project in Egypt. So, Dr. Hisham, you would like to have the floor?
Thank you very much for the both presentations are very interesting and very fruitful. We have learned a lot from them. I'm trying to, I mean, especially the presentation about the Mediterranean Asian market is very, very informative. I have a lot of comments on this, and I'm sure a lot of my colleagues have. I've tried to make it as short as possible. And in the same time, I want to express my gratitude to the amount of work that has been done here in both by EBRD in Egypt. I know a lot of the projects that the EBRD established in the agribusiness has been quite sufficient and quite efficient there. And I want to just to point a few points, please. First, the numbers in the first presentation you did about the numbers from Italy, the grapes to Italy. Unfortunately, the number is wrong because Italy is the gateway for a lot of the volume that's going in there, but it's actually not sold in the Italian market. It's usually sold in the German market and the UK market. So the presence of the Italy being strong or the major market is a little bit distorted, if I may say that. So this first comment I have on that presentation, if you allow me. Secondly, and I think our colleague from the Planned Quarantine, Islam, is here, and I know he's here as the head of the FAO, but he also wears another hat as being work with the Planned Quarantine, which I want to express that the notifications that have been coming out from EU and Russia and the JCC has been very much reduced in the last few years. We have had a tremendous improvement, especially on one of the very important points, which is the health and safety of regarding MRLs and residues in the EU and in the JCC and Russia. This is very important to express that some of the success, I mean, I don't want to say that we are done everything. No, there's a lot of areas of improvement. We can do a lot better. But on this direction, I can tell you that we have done a great job. And regarding some of those, as Ksenia has expressed, that some of the problems happen, that Russia is becoming sometimes very strong in their controls regarding the politically sometimes, because the SPS sometimes is political, sometimes is actual technical issues. So sometimes the Russian authority use the technical barriers, non-technical barriers as a tool of political, and sometimes it works, sometimes it varies. That's why the numbers from 2014 has reduced, because of the fact that before that we had under the Muslim Brotherhood, it was a very bad operation, and there was a lot of bad relationship between Russia and Egypt at that time. So the number of cases was very, very high at that time. When the situation with Egypt has changed after the current political system in Egypt, and there is a better relation, so things have changed in that direction. So there is a little bit of a political, non-technical barrier expressed in this area. But we, as Egyptian authority, and here I'm representing myself as the Agriculture Export Council, not as the Daltix, as an exporter. And we have worked very closely with the plant quarantine to make sure that this is the case, that we are making sure that there is no issues with our exporters regarding training on the plant protection for fruit fly and the issue of potato brown rot. All of these things has been we work very closely with the authorities in Egypt. Last point, but not least, which is about the Russian market. I like to thank you very much, Spasiba Bolshoi, for the presentation. But I have to express that the problem is not. Yes, there are problems in the labels. There are problems in the way documentation is done in Egypt. I know that the Eurasia countries has very, very strict controls on the documentation and papers. Is very important. I agree. But I can tell you that there are a lot of companies in Egypt now has understand and became an expert in understanding the level of problems that could happen if they do not follow the right regulations. The real problem in Russia now, I can tell you, not only the fluctuation of the currency and sometimes the purchasing power is always a bit of a problem, and also the local production of some of the projects that has been done in Russia has been very, very good. And I've seen a lot of the projects that's been done there was very, very good. But the real problem is that there is a level of maturity of the market compared to Europe. The retailers they want to use the best, cheapest price. And there's a lot of problems in the warehouses and the acceptance of the goods in the Russian market and the supermarkets. And it causes a lot of our colleagues in Egypt a lot of pain in getting money back. There's a lot of risk of being not paid, a lot of risk of they have rejections in the arrivals into the warehouses of the relative retailers. And we have colleagues here who can tell you a lot of stories and a lot of nightmares that happened to them working in the Russian market expressed. So the problem in the Russian market in general is not the boundaries of the plant control and the documentation only. The main problem is that people do not get the real return for the product in the Russian market. And this has been a very big complaint to my colleagues here, that they want to find some way of having risk management or some sort of insurance in the Russian market to make sure that this will not happen. And this is the main area of concern. I think I'm speaking to a lot of my colleagues about it. And it has been the main area, not only to export. I mean, most of us have accessibility to the market of Russia. If you look at the number of exporters who are sent to Russia, I can tell you there are more than 1,200 exporters from Egypt who are already shipping with huge volumes. And the strawberry case, in 3 years, Egypt managed to take the business from the European market very quickly and become very strong with strawberries, because they understand how to go to the Russian market. But how to collect their money and becomes competitive is a big issue. And that I don't know how to be covered in and this is really one of the things that hindering the operation there. Other markets, I hope that we can have some presentation expressing other markets, not only the Eurasian market. There is a lot of expansion in Africa, in Central America and South America. There's a lot of other markets that we can work with. Of course, Europe is the main market for us, and Germany is basically a non-touched market that very strict on quality and controls and all of this, which we could work very closely with them to get that very well. My last comment, and I want to make sure, I'm sorry I'm taking so much time with my colleagues, but I'm trying to make it short. That I like to say about the product range. Some of the product range that we are competing with Israel, we are getting, for example, carrots as a product, avocados. There are a lot of products that could be as Egypt that is not expressed in the presentation from the beginning. Those products have to be also expressed that they are new Avocado is a new product that has not been explained and it's very well grown in Israel, but it's not being grown yet in Egypt. There's a lot of and there's a lot of big potential there as a anti-toxic product and have a lot of nutritious values. There are other products which we think are like herbs and spices that we should include in our research and studies that we can touch and we can improve and we have good potential in. Last but not least, again, another point is the small exporters. Yes, there are some concentration of some products in the, like potatoes, with a lot of big exporters based on that area. And we have to expand. We have to, and I'm saying this as an Agricultural Export Council, we have to have more professional producers and exporters in Egypt who are understanding the market, and we have to explain the problems and the mistakes that big exporters or more older exporters and the historical problems they have faced to open these markets, so they can teach and explain the information. So we have to have this as very, very important. I need to express that this is one of the things that we should work on, how to create more information. I'm speaking here as the board member of HEYA, and HEYA has been doing a very good job on teaching and explaining to a lot of our teams, our farmers, how to do the job right. But also we have to explain to our exporters, as Agricultural Export Council now, we have to explain to our exporters how to penetrate new markets and what are the ways to understand that the way to survive in the market is to understand it and do the job. So we need also to have certain level of information and teaching and training to our exporters as much as we're doing to our growers and farmers. Thank you very much. I'm sorry to take so much time.
Thank you, Dr. Hisham. Very, very useful comments. And I would quickly just ask, there is a couple of comments there related to the Ksenia presentation and to the Russian and Eurasian markets. Do you want to address anything? And then I will address a couple of other comments. Thank you very much, Dr. Hisham. Ksenia?
Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to address the matter that retailers are not paying. That is the case for local importers, that's the case for most of the international suppliers, unfortunately. What they're doing is when they buy from you and they set the price, but then on the domestic market they can find cheaper, then they immediately find some quality issues in your container and decline it because it's cheaper for them to buy at the bargain price on the local warehouse market, you know. So yeah, thank you for mentioning that. It's more of the trade issue that, like, you know, yeah, I didn't include that in the presentation, but that's an important issue that everyone is raising. And basically that became the reason for the bankruptcy of quite many importers on the local market, because the distribution is mainly now in retail, while wholesalers are trying to sell to retail, but they're not getting paid back, and so they don't have cash in the turnaround. So yeah.
Very good, Ksenia. I would like
one small comment. What the local greenhouse lobby managed to do is that they managed to make the relationship more organized. Like retailers ought to pay for the greenhouse tomatoes and greenhouse cucumbers that are locally produced. So they get paid by the retailers, but that's lobbying within the big holdings of producers in the Russian Federation. So that there needs to be a power that makes retailers pay.
Okay, thanks, Ksenia. I would like just to address a couple of comments from Dr. Hisham. Again, a very, very important and bold comments that you have made. First of all, about Italy, I cannot agree more with you. It is just a matter of how to process this data, but it's true there is a lot of work, products that comes through Italy, but that goes to other countries. In a more detailed analysis, we should probably see how we can consider the quantity of products that stayed in Italy and the ones that goes to other countries and put those in favor of the other countries. So that is a good point, and it's you're right on what you're saying. There is another point that you raise about the improvements that Egypt have done in terms of reducing the number of notifications. You could see there for EU, for example, we provided a screenshot of the last 5 years. So it doesn't necessarily show the accuracy for what have happened in the last few seasons. So I tend to agree with you that, you know, we have made good improvements, especially, you know, when we had a lot of rejections from the GCC countries and Egypt were able to implement, you know, in the export system, several measures to reduce notification. Dr. Hani from AEC mentioned something very important, that, for example, in the case of strawberries, there has been several notifications in the past 5 years, but it has improved significantly, and specifically, it seems that we haven't had notification related to export of strawberries in the last season, in the season that just ended, the 2019 and 2020. So this is also a certification that the situation, especially in some products, or improving, and that is very good news. About also the other markets like Latin America and the Caribbean and Sub-Saharan Africa, it's another very important point. Or emerging markets, there are some markets like Brazil that are opening for different products from Egypt. This is true, and it's something, probably a continuation of this analysis that we have done would be to look at those markets that shows they are not significant yet in terms of comparatively with the larger markets for Egypt export, but they have a big potential there to diversify the types of markets. And that also comes with the diversification of products that you mentioned. I do think you raising a very important product, and I have visited in Egypt. I lived in Egypt almost 4 years and worked for FAO there, and I have visited many exporters, and I have seen them always pointing out new opportunities for different types of berries, for avocados that you mentioned. So there is a potential for increasing value by diversifying into new products that are not of significance at this point. And my last point is, I would like to thank you for highlighting the importance for exporters to get more profit, to professionalize, to look at their business in a more professional work. And I think there is I have analyzed especially the top 200 exporters in terms of value in Egypt, and I have seen a huge level of professionalization, but also there is a space for improvement in operations, processes, and so on in different exporters there. So I think you have raised another very important point. I would like to give the floor for Dimitri, that is actually the team leader for this project. He's a senior economist in our investment center in headquarters, and he will be, you know, sharing with the speakers some questions that were raised in the chat, and also I'm sure he will be able to do some final remarks from his end. Dimitri, the floor is with you.
Thank you, Josimo. Thank you all participants for your active participation and comments. I'd like to specifically thank our colleagues from Agricultural Expert Council, HEIA, and the BRD for their presentations. Just few general remarks. If you have questions to speakers that you'd like to follow up directly with, like for instance, how can someone hire Xenia for market development work in the Eurasian Economic Union, please contact Stephanie, and Stephanie Leontief, and she will put you directly with Xenia. If you have questions about specific technical issues related to maximum residue limits of pesticides or other agricultural chemicals, please contact Islam Aboelela. I have a difficult job because there were so many good questions. So I will prioritize questions from the Egyptian companies first, and then I will allow floor for some questions from FAO colleagues. Before I do that, I'd like to stress that Ksenia's presentation was focused on the Eurasian market. Our team intends to also look very carefully later on, and we will look at market opportunities within the European Union. So I'd like to actually thank Francesca Mazzucco for her intervention about opening trade between Egypt and the European Union. We are currently looking at some market entry points for Egyptian products to the European Union market. So we are looking at wholesale markets. And Mr. Hisham El Nagar mentioned Italy as one of the gates. So we are looking very carefully at Centro Agroalimentare Roma, the Roman wholesale market, which acts as one of these gateways. And we think to cooperate with that wholesale market in conducting a review, or let's say with experts who work with that market in conducting EU market review. As Josimo mentioned, we will be also looking at other markets, Gulf cooperation countries, possibly Asian and other markets. So with that, questions from participants. Good question from Musa Hashem to everyone. I'm exporter from Egypt. How do I guarantee my rights abroad? Okay, how can I hire you? This, I think, can be answered directly by Stephanie. She can put you in touch with Ksenia. Questions about being, okay, just a second. I'm scrolling through a long list here. Josimo, question. What about pulses and dates? So I'll turn it to you, and then I hope we will still have questions, time for a few other questions.
Okay, that is a good point, and actually, as we have presented some of the preliminary results of those studies, other products have come out. For example, peanuts and many other products. We had to focus. We wanted to focus on combining two things. One is the importance in terms of volumes and the incidence of food safety issues, MRLs and also SPS. So dates, it's Egypt actually, I conducted another value chain studies for dates in the NENA region, in the Near East and North African region, and I looked at the case of Egypt very closely. It is by far the main producer of dates. It has over 400 varieties in the countries, but the levels of exports are still quite small. There is a huge potential to growth, but the level of export were quite small. So it didn't fall within those products that would be at the top export from Egypt. And also the focus of this project was in fruits and vegetables. Fresh fruits and vegetables. So some of the pulses like broad bean were considered for fresh, for example, snappies and others were considered, but they also didn't fall within those top products that we were focusing on. I do think that there is a varieties of all the products that have a good market potential. Dates is one of them, and Egypt can grow substantially the level of exports if the export sector can look for the right buyers. You have Canada, US as very good destination, the EU, France, UK, and also Australia with very high value markets that Egypt can access. And I think the potential is there. It's just that probably a lot needs to be done for those potential to be leveraged. I think that is all I can say for this question.
Thanks, Josimo. There is an excellent question from colleague in FAO, Mohammed Abdel Monem. He thanks you for presentation, Josimo. Is there an impact of COVID-19 on exports of different types of horticultural crops in Egypt? And what is the expectation for the future? I think, Josimo, maybe we should try to see if we still have colleagues from Agricultural Export Council and HEYA, see if they can answer a question about COVID-19 impact on exports. Do we still have them with us? As they are probably feeling it better, if there has been any impact on demand for Egyptian horticultural products due to COVID-19. Do we still have Iman?
Dr. Hisham and
Dr. Hisham.
Yeah, and Mr. Hani Hussein from AC, are you there? Would you like to address this question? Or Madame Kamel from HEYA?
Iman, you want to answer this?
Yes, please go ahead.
Go ahead, Hisham, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I mean, well, please go ahead, Iman. So, sorry.
No, you can represent you, and you can talk about the numbers, because I'm sure Hani did a great presentation. You remember when we were in the Ministry of Agriculture concerning volumes and the impact of COVID on the volumes. So I'm sure you have numbers that can answer the question.
The question is the following. I mean, I can answer the question. The impact is different from one product to the other. Has been very significant on some products like citrus. It has increased the value. I mean, yes, the volume has not been as promising as it should be, but the value has been higher. For comparing last year, I mean, there was a period of uncertainty when the Chinese locked a lot of the volumes of the cold reefers in China, in Shanghai, which caused a lot of the product not be able to move from one place to the other, and shortage of logistics. That is in the months of February, March, April. Then there was another wave of a lot of exports from Egypt in the citrus industry mainly, which was very high impact of volume, yes, but the price was very, it was a sort of a trying to pick up the pace after a very slow time of the January, February, March, and then it has increased. And the value of export. So let me put in numbers. We have a reduction in volume in citrus of 17% from 2019 to 2020, but we have a reduction in value by only 1%, which just gives you the idea that there was a higher value of what has been exported. But in a product like potatoes, for example, it is a completely different story. The amount of business losses in potatoes has been very high because the restaurants and the hotels and the catering business in the world has stopped. So there was a lot of supply of potatoes available in the market, which caused that there is the factories has stopped and there is no acceptance of the goods of French fries. So there was a lot of available cheap potatoes in the market in Europe, which has impacted the value of exports of potatoes and also the volume of potatoes, and has been a complete disaster inside Egypt and outside Egypt in potato business. On the other side, in onions, it was a very drastic season in the beginning of the onion season in months of March, April, May, June, and the prices of onions was very, very low. But by the end of the season, which was the last 6 or 7 weeks, was an expansion in Bangladesh and India market with very high demand and increased, and it has, I cannot give this reflection to the COVID. It has been mainly due to the weather conditions. But COVID's impact has been very clear in citrus and oranges. Grapes was a good market, was not a very slow, it was not huge, but there was not a negative impact because it is in July with the summer, and the stress of COVID has been less in most of the markets and started to open. So the grape season, for example, was not affected. Anything that has grown in the grape in the winter time or exported in the winter time has been impacted because of the logistics issue. Anything has been exported in the summertime, like mangoes or grapes, has been doing very well. And if I can give you also strawberries, we had a record strawberries exports to Europe this year. We reached close to 12,000 tons of strawberries exported to outside Egypt, of which 11,000 went to EU and the UK. which also that happened before because the season finishes in February, and that was happening before the COVID. So we coming for the future, it's again uncertain because of the waves. We heard the number of talking about how many cases in Russia, and the number of cases that are now UK is in complete lockdown until the end of the month. Germany and Spain and Italy is in another lockdown in a lot of the major cities. So we will still wait. It's very uncertain how things will happen. I hope I answered the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. El Nagar. I think, yes, you did. Jose Moise, we need to wrap up. Maybe two last questions. To help Mr. Musa Hashem to answer his question about guarantees of being paid and guaranteeing the interests. My quick recommendation is to have an excellent trade agent, and maybe Ksenia can put you in touch with the people she knows. What was clear from her presentations is that export markets are risky. There are trade bans, there are exchange rate fluctuations, there are domestic support policies in these markets, like, you know, if the Russian government wants to provide $25 billion of support to domestic tomato and other greenhouse producers. There are developments in retail trade, there are rejections. It would be good that Agricultural Export Council and other industry members in Egypt discuss export credits and export guarantees. These are the instruments that are used by other countries to support their exports and to reduce risks to exporters. And again, that's one recommendation. Second is to have very good trade agent who can help you solve your problems domestically. One more question, and I think we'll close it. So I hope I answered the question from Mr. Musa Hashem. Excellent question from colleague Laura De Matteis. Since the EU Farm to Fork strategy includes agrochemical use reduction, does this project offer the opportunity for promoting biofertilizers, pesticides, or reducing the use of agrochemicals in Egypt? Josimo, may I answer this one directly?
Yes, please.
Thank you. The short answer is yes, Laura. We are looking very careful at EU regulations in this regard. Islam Abu Elala has alerted us earlier that we need to, Islam is responsible for SPS issues on our project team. We are looking carefully at what we can provide as training to producers and supplier zero first buyers in terms of EU regulations related to use of chlorpyrifos. So this pesticide registered in the European Union is going to be banned soon by the European Union. And so yes, that will be part of our strategy in providing trainings in line with EU regulations. So we see fewer rejections. But at the same time, when it comes to biofertilizers and biopesticides as such, it's not specific focus of our training. We will, however, promote the FAO's the FAO strategy on integrated pest management. So that will be part of the training. I hope we can stop here, Josemo, and I turn over to you.
Thanks, Dimitri.
Yes, thank you very much, Dimitri, for highlighting those very important questions. Before I wrap up, and I thank all the speakers and all the very diverse number of participants, I would like just to address another question that were there that I think is very important. It's related to what we have discussed already. There was one person that said, as shown by Josimo, tier 2 and 3 exports represent at 35%. This segment mainly outsourced from the smallholder farmers who need more technical support and extension to comply with food safety standards, including chemical hazard as pesticide residues, the main cause of rejections for end customers' dissatisfaction. So I think this is a very important one. And actually, this is a very good segue for my last two bullet points that I would like to share. Is that this project have gone from analyzing, you know, the subsectors, the value chains, the products that we need to focus. We have looked at the issue of notification as highlighted for some of the speakers. You know, the situation have improved, but there is more that we can do to really, you know, raise Egypt of a very safe production site for high value products that can be consumed anywhere. And you know, this project is now, we have already conducted several surveys with inspectors, with farmers, smallholder farmers, with exporters, to better understand what in the issues that we still have with in compliance with food safety standards, what is actually leading to that. So we are now wrapping up this study. We didn't want to crowd too much this webinar and presenting some of the findings, but we will have other events where we will present that. But what is coming from this study is a very good direction of where we should focus on preparing the guidelines that can be used by smallholder farmers, by larger producers, for them to properly use, implement, you know, integrated pest management in their farms, to better use the products, the chemicals that are allowed, and at the right way, in the right way. And also we will have a series of training that will take place early next year. We hope that the situation will improve. We will even be able to have face-to-face training. We will see how the situation evolves. But we will be focusing on training exporters and training suppliers, farmers that are producing those products that are reaching our tables in many markets. So this is just for you to have a glance of what is coming next. Again, I would like to thank all the speakers, the opening remarks from our main partners, from EBRD, from the European Union, from AEC, and from HEA. And of course, our FAO representation in Egypt that we work hand in hand with this project. We will have other webinars focusing in other topics, and some of them focusing on discussion with the regulatory bodies that we have in Egypt. So there are a lot to come within the next few months, and I'm sure we will stay in touch and you will hear more from our project and for the activities that we are implementing. So thank you, everyone. I just hope that the situation can improve, and I wish a speedy recovery for the people that have been affected by COVID-19. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Josimo.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks to everybody. Thank you. See you soon.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks on behalf of EBRD. Bye-bye.
And thank you for all the translators also, huh? The translators and the audiovisual colleagues that are behind the scenes. Thank you very much for the support.
Thanks, Gary, for joining, and thanks to EBRD team for active participation. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you, everyone, for a great webinar and great presentations today. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.